What's up everyone, welcome to another video. So Nahida has been out for some days now, and honestly it feels like she's been out for weeks, but if you look at the numbers, it's only been out for a couple days and she's already topping the charts. Why is that? Why is she so popular, so in demand? I cannot imagine that the community is just going after a character because she's cute. I mean, we've had cute characters in the past. I do think there is some sort of merit to having this character, and I believe that at this point it's best for us to go forward thinking all Archon is going to perform to this levels. But what is that level exactly? What makes Nahida so damn good? In this video I want to share with you two reasons, and they're not arbitrary reasons. In fact, they're actually two teams that I think highlights one of the many reasons why Nahida is so sought after. The first team is going to be a Keqing team. Now this is something that I've said for a long time, right? Keqing is my favorite character. I love playing her, and I did love playing her even going into metas where she was not as prevalent anymore. She just wasn't dishing out enough damage to feel like she was a good modern pickup. Now EroticWalruss could have easily decided to forsaken old characters in the meta and just move forward, but the good thing about EroticWalruss as a company in this case is that they've decided to be inclusive for some of the older traditional stuff, even when they were designing Nahida and trying to release her for patches where Dendro was more prevalent. So of course, when we talk about teams that has Nahida in them, they're going to be Dendro centric teams. But what if I told you even in non-Dendro specific centric teams, Nahida can still bring value to a team through her all-purposeful elemental mastery buffing? Now that may sound a bit copium, but I assure you by the end of this video you would also come to appreciate the values of Nahida. The first team, like I said, I'm going to show you is Keqing. So the team I have on screen here is going to be Keqing, Nahida, Zhongli, and Kazuha. Now a better variation of this team that's likely more free to play and also just easier to build is going to be Keqing, Nahida, Kuki, and Kazuha. And I'm sure this is the one that most free to plays are going to go as well. The reason I can get away with running Zhongli instead of Kuki is because I have Nahida at C1. So a C1 Nahida will still get you that 2 electro buff for her burst skill, but if you're C0 you can always run Kuki. Kuki is actually going to solve quite a number of issues here for you. Now running 1 electro can solve the issue through Nahida C1 for Nahida's side, but it doesn't make up for the lack of an electro resonance. However, the good thing about this is Keqing is a character that really doesn't need any additional supercharging for batteries or whatever. She has very low cost burst, and she herself can generate some particles for herself. It's just very easy to play her. That's why I think you don't really need the electro resonance. But for C0 Nahida, running double electro is going to help you with proccing more of her tri-karma purification, which in turn is just more damage. So I don't have Kuki leveled up, so I'm running Zhongli and I have C1 Nahida for her. So just ignore the whale side of this and focus on the gameplay, because that's where Nahida shines. This is a cool thing about her, right? Her off-field presence is similar to a character such as Albedo, and her Dendro application is actually good enough to keep up with Keqing's electro application. Even during Keqing's burst and elemental skill combos, Nahida through her double electro CD is proccing the Dendro reaction every 1.8 seconds, I believe, and in turn is just stacking up a crazy amount of damage. Especially with Kazuha, I'm able to pull everyone together and then petrifying them with Zhongli, and this essentially eradicates the issue of Keqing's attacks pushing enemies back as well, which, believe it or not, is actually a pretty sizable DPS increase because you don't need to chase after the enemies. If you're wondering if this team works with other electro characters, it could work, but we run into a problem really quickly because Nahida is applying so much Dendro that it's eating up the electro too fast for you to reliably proc Viridescence through Kazuha. Now Keqing is one of the characters that can actually bypass this issue because of the sheer amount of electro she can apply, so that's not really a problem, and that's also why the Keqing variant of this team is one of, if not the best. Now you guys can sit here and say, well, Walrus, what about Sino, right? Like you were so excited for Nahida and Sino, how do they synergize? So this is the unfortunate thing. For some reason it just doesn't feel as good as Keqing. I've tried both of these. Yes, damage-wise, Kaching is level 90 with, Constellation 5 and stuff. So yeah, damage is going to be, but I'm talking about synergistic playstyles and how comfortable it feels. It just doesn't feel as fluid as when Kaching is being played in this manner. Now, basically, what I have to end up doing for Sino is bring a second Electro. I have to bring a second Electro, or else Viridescence just doesn't work. But I've also noticed, like, is it worth it to bring a second Electro just to get Viridescence, but expose Sino to the elements? Because then I would need healing to make sure Sino can stay on the field and survive for 18 seconds while also ignoring enemy hits. So it just didn't really make much sense sometimes to bring Viridescence. What I ended up having to do is bring double Electro with Zhongli and Nahida, so Zhongli's shield can protect Sino for the vast duration of his burst skill. On top of that, double Electro gives him some sort of battery assistance, and Nahida gives enough Dendro application. All in all, it's an okay team, but it just doesn't feel as good. Now, moving on to the second team. This is a team that I think a lot of people are already aware of, but I need to mention this for the people who are on the fence about Nahida as a character, because she enables another traditional team, which is Ganyu Melt team. Now, the old Ganyu Melt team was pretty darn good, but we had not really an issue, but we had certain problems with this team being inconsistent with its reaction. Now, the good thing is that Nahida's Dendro will never, ever, ever interfere with Ganyu's Melt synergies, because Dendro and Cryo doesn't interact. And another good thing is Dendro and Geo or Anemo doesn't interact. So the only thing Dendro can interact in this case is going to be with the Pyro. Now, what does Dendro do with Pyro? It's burning. And what does more Dendro to burning does? It extends burning's duration, right? So what essentially it does is you're using Nahida to extend a Pyro application onto the enemies, and the team actually goes like this. So Ganyu is of course going to be your main DPS, followed by that is going to be Nahida, and then it's going to be Bennett, and finally you complete this team with Kazuha. So Kazuha for the most part is going to be swirling the Pyro. Just forget about swirling Cryo, it's just inconsistent. Pyro is likely going to be your main element to swirl. So again, more Pyro application is only going to be beneficial for this team, because Ganyu, if you use her burst and her charge attack, applies quite a bit of Cryo. So with good enough Pyro application and Nahida's Dendro, you should be able to melt every single hit. And don't forget, if you are able to activate Nahida's burst skill, you are getting that huge up to 250 elemental mastery buff for your on-field character, which in this case is going to be Ganyu for the most part. Now that's going to be extremely helpful for your melt Ganyu procs. As you may have already seen on screen, this team is absolutely cracked out of its mind. It's just chewing through all the enemies. You can get easily up to over 100,000 crits with a pretty decently built Ganyu. I'm sure even free-to-plays at this point with free-to-play Nahida can consistently be getting around 80k to 100k crits for Ganyu in this melt team. It's absolutely jacked. Now, people, we are only looking at 2 teams. There are plenty of more traditional teams that can be played in a similar fashion, because Nahida enables new playstyles. That's why she is so popular. Don't be quick to think that HoYoVerse is just here to promote new content and forgetting the old. We are just as much playing with the old. In fact, till this day, some of the best meta teams are still from like Inazuma and before that. I'm happy to see Nahida as a character who has been isolated for so long is so inclusive to all the characters and all the team comms that we already have, as well as new ones to come. This is so exciting. I really urge everybody who is able to watch this while Nahida is still available to go and pick up a C0 Nahida. You don't need her weapon, you don't need her constellations, just a C0 Nahida with some free to plays. Even 3-star weapons can give you similar effects as long as you're willing to invest into her artifact stats. Okay, so with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I am so excited. I'm so happy that I invested into this character. I am way over invested, but you know, I don't regret a single cent. All right, so until next time, I'm going to urge you all to stay safe and peace. Bye.